Hello, everybody. Come back. It's the one known as CR, Redundancy, back again. Hopefully, the sound's doing better in this one. Anyways, while I wait for some people to come in, hopefully, everything's good. This is a live stream from CR, live with me here. Reconnect with you all, the people out there, and share some camping type of stories and tips and tricks and stuff like that. Things that have worked out for me. I may benefit you. Incorporate these into your next camping trip that you have. Hi, Vanessa Kitty. Very nice to see you again, my friend. Always nice to see you. Always nice to see you. I think this is working now. That's my sound. Actually, I can hear that background music. It's known as daydreaming here on StreetYard. So I guess I won't be all camping out. Okay. Text? Uga? Okay, cool. I guess I'm just not the all time out. I don't know why that does that. Anyways. Oh, you like this Huga CB? Yeah. This is supposed to represent, and the reason why I brought this in is camping for me is like, a chance. It's like a vacation almost, right? And not only a vacation, but a chance to reconnect with, the land, the air, the water, nature. See that wildlife, right? Have a campfire, stuff like that. Maybe practice some skills like fire making, splitting wood, feather sticks, setting up camp, setting up or a shelter, or bringing in a tent or an RV or whatever, or something like that, or a tarp or whatever, right? Okay, Vanessa. Hi, Muscow. And thanks, CB. So yeah, this is why this icon represents that. So, your campfire, the water that you need to bring in, the trees you might use for your hammock or something like that. So, the little light that you see in there is supposed to represent like air. So, the wind, the breeze, and stuff like that. The air the campfire needs and stuff like that. The oxygen and stuff like that. So, yeah, you like this? Yeah. Anyways, I'll talk about the icons in a different stream or video or whatever. This is about camping. So, like I said, the first thing when it comes to camping is actually you need to plan ahead. So let me just show this here. Put that in there. So maybe you put stuff on the table or whatever to lay out for your camping trip. You think about, how long are you gonna go for? Obviously, tell people that you're going, right? I guess that's an important thing, especially in preparedness, right? So they know and stuff like that. Just dates, let people know your where you're going, how long you're staying for, and when to expect you or your people or me or whatever to be returning. Hey, I'm leaving Tuesday. I'll be back on Friday. Okay, CR. If I'm not back on by Saturday, then or you don't hear from me, man, maybe send that search party, but hopefully it won't come down to that. Hi, Tammy. Well, it's nice of you to drop in, Tammy. Yay! It's Puppy. What? Wait. That's... Oh. It's supposed to be this way. Is it? Oh, quick. Yeah, I'm trying to click on this one. Alright. Thanks. Appreciate that. So yeah, plan the trip. I'll go over the volume. This volume a little here. Louder than I want. Go over it. Yeah. Lower that just a tad here. So everyone can hear me better. No, actually, text it's just an issue I have. Hence, I restart this stream. Anyways, before I get derailed on my own stream here. So I appreciate you all you people dropping in. Appreciate it. Like I said, I'm gonna be talking about camping stuff, stories, tips and tricks, things I keep in mind. So you plan this trip. You're getting things together, maybe on the table or whatever. You get a backpack ready to go. Maybe make a list of what things you would like to bring. I mean, there's also going to be things that have high priority in terms of camping, where you got to bring it. There's like really no ifs, ands, or buts about it. Then there's other things that are more, you can get by without it, but it's nice to have the convenience or the ability to have it or something like that. So something like a pillow isn't high priority, but it would be nice to get a good night's sleep while you're out there. All right, because it doesn't matter if you're in a hammock, in a tent, in a sleeping bag, or a sleeping mat. When you don't have neck support for your neck, it's one of those things. It may be a high priority for some, but you can improvise that if you had to. But if you forgot it or something like that, but something like water, that's going to be a very high priority. You definitely will need that for sure. It's just like having some form of shelter with you. Usually it's going to be like a tent. Usually for most people that go camping, it's going to be a tent. Maybe an RV if you get the funds and the ability to bring that in and stuff like that. But definitely shelter, water, and food are going to be high priority on the list. So there's a cup right there. On the screen, there's a bag with a sleeping mat. And there could be a sleeping bag too. So, I didn't miss any of the chat. No, I don't think I did. Okay. So feel free to ask some camping questions or whatever. Get the discussion going here. Like I said, this is about camping. Camping stories, tips and tricks, things to keep in mind. So you enjoy your camping experience. So, and let's say, hypothetically speaking, let's say I was planning a trip right now on this day. It's August, late August, well, mid-August, give or take, 2022. Let's say I was planning a trip for this weekend. It's Friday, TGIF, right? It's TGIF, I keep forgetting. It's Friday, right? So if you were planning a trip for this weekend, and like I said, tell people and stuff like that, maybe lay your contents out, make a list, right? Make sure you check everything off, like having water, shelter, and some food items. You might be able to just get by with like a lighter for fire, maybe some matches if you want, a ferrocene rod if you want that kind of stuff, or solar if you want that kind of stuff. But for sure, a lighter. Nothing wrong with using a lighter, right? Nothing wrong with using a lighter. And of course, maybe you plan ahead a little bit more if you want. Maybe you bring in that extra fire starter, whatever it is, to help you start your campfire. It could be a very commonly known petroleum jelly con ball, for example, or maybe you're sourcing it out when you get there too. Like, birch bark, fat wood, stuff like that. Dry grasses, birch bark, and stuff like that. Usually I will bring in at least one fire starter, but as I'm on the road, so to speak, I'm always thinking, okay, we're planning to have a campfire because we brought in all this stuff to cook, that's the eggs, bacon, stuff like that, hot dogs, s'mores, marshmallows, and stuff where you probably want a campfire. Some of that stuff. So just in case I bring in the fire starter. Now, usually, if it's dry out, I won't dip into that so much. But let's just say you're going and it's like been raining or there's a chance of rain, stuff like that. Yeah, that fire starter might be useful, to dip into. And always planning ahead. Yeah, exactly. It's like priorities. And if you camp, if you're especially hiking in, try to travel as light as you can. I mean, when you think of camping, usually you're stationary, but some people out there will camp in one place for one night, then keep moving on, right? Those through hikers that are ultra light hikers and stuff like that. They still have like core elements like water, shelter, clothing. Their fire making methods are probably something as simple as a multi-tool and a lighter, right? Because they're, instead of having like that petroleum jelly cotton ball pad or whatever fire starter, they have, I don't know, maybe hand sanitizer or something like that, or they bring in something to actually cook with. And there's nothing wrong with bringing that stuff in, like a butane stove or whatever. Yeah. Maybe one of those small ones that you can pack in and stuff like that. For that morning coffee or something like that. But for the most part, you're thinking, okay, I'm not camp out, use that butane. I'll bring one butane container. That'll be for the coffee. Everything. Or let's just say if it's too hot out to make a campfire, something like that. Because sometimes it's too hot to make a campfire, or you don't want to be making a campfire. Let's say it's afternoon time here in North America. Let's say it's 30 out, 88, 86 Fahrenheit, not 30 Celsius out. And you probably don't want to be making or tending to a campfire during the day. It's just going to be way too hot. Like a lot of times when I'm going out camping during this time of year, if it's going to be hot, I don't campfire. No, not during the day. I'll wait till when it cools down, closer to that sunset time, where it cools down, where the sun is mostly down. It's in that dusk period, and I'll start the campfire. Because I don't need to start the campfire when it's 30 above. Because I'm not going to be using it anyways. Because I brought in water already, fresh water, or I'm sourcing it out, let's say at a lake or a pond or a river nearby, right? So I don't have to boil water to drink it or consume it, because I can purify it with, let's say, tablets, a water filter, stuff like that. Where boiling is the last resort, because I don't want to tend to an open fire and start sweating because I have to, because the heat. So let's see. We've covered telling people, planning, core elements like shelter, clothing, water, hydration, containers to, like pots and pans, I guess. Yeah, mess kit. I guess food, right? Food is gonna be another thing. If you're not hiking in far, you can bring cans or whatever. But if you're hiking in far, you might bring more lightweight, ultra lightweight, ready to eat food more. If you want like snacks and stuff like that. And I know some people. Wow, I know some people will bring in a certain type of bag to try out. Sometimes I've done that with camping, where I'll bring in a backpack, a different kind of backpack. One might go back and actually try that stuff out, but this is more about regular camping. An average Jane or Joe, Jane or Joe or John or whatever. Oh, thanks. Appreciate that. Yeah, it's part of the life if you enjoy it. James is here too. What's up, James? Sorry, I'm trying to. I keep misclicking. Sorry. What's up, Lee? James, I see you in there. Puppy Breath. Yeah, Shadow. What's up, everyone? Anyways, I appreciate you all dropping in. So, yeah. So, you plan this trip, maybe lay things out. Okay, so it's the day of the trip now. And hopefully you packed your bag, your gear, stuff like that. Checked on it, make sure it's working. Right. Make sure you didn't forget the poles, right? Nothing worse than probably forgetting your poles for your tent. Maybe you bring in a tarp or two for some shade, especially if it's hot out. You probably want some shade, especially if you're not in a tree line or something like that. Rain cover and stuff like that. And maybe as the day comes closer, because, obviously we got access to certain things, you check the weather forecast, see how it's supposed to be and stuff like that. And go with that. If it's generally gonna be, it's not gonna rain, okay, I probably not bring this extra raincoat or something like that, but I might bring a jacket if it's cooler out in the evenings, or mosquitoes, bugs are biting me in the evening time, right? Some people will change into pants even though it's hot still, because of mosquitoes and stuff like that, bugs and stuff like that. So I usually will bring in like socks, pants, and one jacket, but I don't dip into that unless I really need to. Like if it's cooler out in the mornings, or let's just say something like that. So, hi, how are you? It's nice to see you again. Sorry, I have some background background sounds playing. Someone's running something. So yes. So if you take anything away from this first whole part, plan and prepare the best you can, and set out your priorities and what you want to bring. And some things will always have the highest of sorts of priority. Like I said, shelter, clothing, water, and food. Because you probably don't need that. Especially things that go along with said items, like, let's say, a pan, a pot. Something to boil your water in so you can make that coffee if you bring coffee or teas or something like that. Something like, if you're hiking in far or whatever, or you can't carry too much, maybe instead of bringing like liquid juice, in a box or a can or whatever, you bring powder mix and just mix it in with the water that you can source from said lake, river, stream, pond, and stuff like that. Especially if you have access to the water, And of course, if you don't have access to water because where you're going, well, you're not have to bring that in. So, and that's gonna be heavy. So feel free, everyone in the side chat here, if you got questions or whatever, drop them in. I'll see them. And let's put a CR in there. I'll probably see it. I'm very noticeable of that CR now, as you can tell. So let's see here. What else? Oh, yeah, see, there's a seat right there in front of my icon on the screen right now. You might want to bring in a folding chair and stuff like that if you want. Or bring something that you can make one out of if you want to go more lightweight, or a stool or something like that. So let's see now. Oh yeah, tools. You're probably gonna need some degree of tools. And when I say tools, I also mean things like utensils too. Spoon, fork, chopsticks, whatever, right? Something, something to stir your coffee with. Whip the eggs with or whatever, right? If you're planning to bring that in. And of course, with anything with food, especially out in the open, try to keep your food away from the animals and the bugs and all that stuff hanging in, you know, especially if you're in territory that's prone to having wildlife drop in, right? You may want to consider hanging your food up, right, and stuff like that. In a dry bag, for example. And that's another thing I like to have is a dry bag for my, well, not for the food, but for the shelter elements like clothing, like pants, socks, and stuff like that. To me, it just makes sense, and I don't have to worry about, that random rain or, something like that, because they'll stay dry in that dry bag. And another thing I like to do is, with your clothing, is I like to bring one extra type of bag. It could be whatever, a grocery bag or whatever. Basically, something to put dirty clothing back into, like your socks and stuff like that. Where either you bring it back into your home later on to do laundry or whatever, or if you're lucky enough, maybe it rains and you can just wash stuff while you're out there. But now, bring in I'll show this one back up for a little bit here. I'll bring this back up, okay. Hey, CB. Ooh, I was getting to that eventually. All right. If you pack in TP, all right, keep it dry. Keep it in a bag or in a system or whatever that keeps it dry. Nothing worse than, the TP got wet, the paper towels got wet, or something like that, unnecessarily. So, where it be, in a little resealable baggie or something like that, or a dispenser to keep it dry, but still be able to dispense it. Oh, you guys are funny. At least my sound's still going well. But coming back to what I was saying about the tools, right? Maybe you want it depends what you're really wanting to do. You probably, and of course, if you're building a campfire, then you need to bring these additional tools for that, saw and axe, something like that, the split wood and stuff like that, because it just makes it easier. Or a hatchet along those lines and that. So maybe something as simple as, a spork type of utensil, chopstick, maybe something to flip your eggs with or something like that. Tongs have been useful for me in camping too, because sometimes, to turn something on the campfire or whatever it is, to flip it, move coals with, something I don't want to per se use gloves with all the time, because if they're too hot or too greasy or something like that, like a hot dog or something like that. So I like tongs. And the beauty of tongs, because unfortunately I forgot to bring it the last time I went camping, is for people that also do these other activities and stuff like that while they're camping out, they may practice some sort of bushcrafting or survival type of skills, like feather sticking or something like that. Or maybe they're, hey, Caesar, what's this? Oh, it's my tin. What you cooking in that tin? I'm making charcoal, right? So having a tin, if you bring a container to make charcoal because you want to do that, because I'm gonna have a campfire for sure, so I'm bringing my char tin and making some charcoal while I'm out there, kind of deal. Tongs are useful because it allows you to pick up your tin and pull it out. Not saying you can't do it without it, but it's just more convenient compared to trying to fish it out or use a stick or something else like that to kind of bounce it out. And those tongs are not relatively not that expensive. They don't take that much room. Relatively lightweight, not too heavy. Probably as light as a a Swiss Army knife or something like that. And something like a multi-tool, like a Swiss Army knife, you probably bring too. Maybe it's ones with pliers, stuff like that. Have pliers, saw, cutting edge, maybe a file, right? Something like that. Oh, folding shovel? Yeah. If you want, to make a cat hole, right? Stuff like that. Especially if you're not bringing in something in like a bucket with a pool noodle on the top kind of deal, right? Go with that TP. So yeah, folding shovel I would count it as a tool. Stuff like that. Well, tinfoil is one of those things you can make. It has the versatility, the lightweightness, lightweight. You can make a lid for your pot, right? Because sometimes a lid can help, especially if you're cooking with like propane stove or some sort of camping stove or whatever. Yeah, because the lid will make that water or boil that much faster, and perhaps use a little bit less fuel, stuff like that. And you don't have to wait as long, and you can simmer something for a little bit and stuff like that. Let's say eggs or whatever you want, hard-boiled eggs, stuff like that. Oh yeah, I totally agree. Right there, Tammy. Yeah, they're very useful to have. A camping shovel, yeah, or a foldable shovel. Like you can bring a full tank one with a handle or whatever, but you got to be able to trick it in, especially if your campsite's a fair distance away from your vehicle or your transportation in. Stuff like that. And I've been assuming that I'm talking about like one or two people. When you start having like multiple people, then you can work out things where not everyone brings everything. The core elements like shelter, water, and food. Yeah, everyone's got a tent or a sleeping bag. Everyone's got a water container at least to put water into. Utensils to eat with, right? So no one has to share utensils or a water container, right? So it's like, okay, Sierra, can you bring the water? This big 15-gallon amount of water or the water filter? I'll bring in the food or something like that, for example. Well, I was getting to that, Huga. I was starting to get to that. Because if you're camping out, you're away from, per se, civilization. Suburban, urban, or mostly rural country areas too, right? For the most part, unless you're in an RV or whatever, right? You're basically off grid. So you don't need, especially if you're camping overnight, it does get dark, right? It's not always daylight, Obviously, during the summertime, it's only going to be like 8 hours or so, but you might want to bring some sort of flashlight, a lighting device, a candling device, Those are one of the 10 C's, right? Flashlight, headlamp, something along the lines of that, so you can see what you're doing. Just in case you got to take that little restroom break at 12 o'clock at night, at midnight, so you can see what you're doing. And stuff like that. And remember, there's a lot of different options when it comes to lighting options, right? It could be one of those solar crank radios that have a flashlight option, something like that. I wouldn't heavily rely on your phone as a flashlight option, for the simple fact that you don't want to break your phone accidentally. And so it's not impossible, but it's hard to make your phone hands-free with the flashlight option on. And besides, you might want to conserve that power for your phone too. So a flashlight might be a little bit more convenient to have. On, off, low modes and stuff like that to use. Those firefly modes and stuff like that. You don't always need that high brightness turbo mode all the time. So bring what you can. Yeah, exactly, right. Exactly. Headlamps are useful to have too, right? Exactly, Shadow. Yeah. Now, this comes into play about the power for these devices. Phone. Maybe you wear a hearing aid. One of the last times I went camping, I met someone during this time that actually had to use a hearing aid that recharged via USB. I'll get into that story in a little bit. So, power options. Now, if you got the flats in the ear, yeah, okay, solar, right? Especially if you're expecting, like today, it's sunny out, to recharge devices. Okay, if you got that, but that can be either you don't have it, or expensive, or too bulky for the amount of time. Or, let's just say, hey, CR, I'm going on this camping trip, that quote-unquote hypothetical, this weekend, right? And it's supposed to be raining or cloudy most of the time. Solar may not be the best option then. So something like a battery bank of some sort might be useful. And when you do, remember to top it off, because those battery banks take a while to recharge. So top it off beforehand, right? Especially if you're planning ahead, it's like, okay, I'm going on this trip. I got 2 days to pack or whatever. Plug in that battery bank, charge it up, top it off. Top it off. I know some of them have a built-in LED light that could be useful if you want something like that. And bring in some charging cables, phone cables and stuff like that. If you're going in a group or something like that, a universal charging cable might be beneficial. Like, for the most part, people that are camping out, they bring their vehicle, they probably have a car charger and stuff like that. But just in case some issues arise, you have a universal charger. So that way, anyone and everyone can charge their device, providing there's power. And it's not going to be like, everyone else has a lightning cable, but I only have this air USB cable. And my USB cable, something happened to it, right? So we can bring this in here. Yes, headlamp is expensive when cooking at night or on campfire. You can see and tend to your food without having to use a flashlight. Also, they have adjustable straps. Yeah, and brightness levels and stuff like that too. So, because maybe you might be thinking it's like you can bring one of those lanterns and stuff like that, but I think a headlamp flashlight battery bank with cables is probably gonna be more useful for most of the situations, most of the conditions you might face, regardless if it's raining, sunny, windy, and such. And besides, you have to see if the food's cooked too, right? Right, stuff like that. Really enjoying your guys and gals input. Thank you. Appreciate it. Okay. That's cool. That comes back to like the wind-up lights and stuff like that. Text. Like the wind-up lights. Like those solar hand crank radios that have a built-in flashlight and stuff like that. Stuff similar to that. Now, in terms of radio communications, right? If you haven't been to this area before, that's one thing. But if you've been to an area before and you don't get signal or whatever, or a cellular signal, definitely do some planning beforehand, right? Because you won't be able to know if there's a storm coming or whatever. Maybe you had that crank radio or whatever. Maybe you can pick up a signal, maybe not. Right? So that's why you plan a little bit more, especially if you don't have access to cellular communications. Right? You can't even pick up a radio station. Then you're really out there. You're not to be able to get news like weather reports and stuff like that. Oh, hey, that storm that's heading south, it's diverting north more or something like that. So I hit this area, for example, over the weekend. That sudden change like that. And, any other news that may be important. What's up, GP? GP in the house. Because he's the guardian. Oh, okay, ideas. Okay, cool. Even something like that if you want, right? That's if you have that, right? You can bring whatever you want for camping purposes. You can go glamping if you want. But remember, if you're packing in, pack it back out, right? Leave no trace, all that other stuff, But I'll get into that as we finish this metaphoric camping trip that I'm talking about. So now, it's the day of the trip, right? You've packed everything. You maybe double check or whatever. It's like checking off these categories, or like, okay, I got sleep, the shelter, clothing, sleeping bag, blanket, a pillow, the tent. Let's see. In the water department, it's like you're checking off things like, okay, water purification, water filter. We know where the water is, or we're bringing that in, or hiking it in, or trucking it in, or walking it in, or hiking it in, right? Food and utensils and stuff like that. Tools, multi-tool, axe, saw, folding saw, fixed blade, depending on what you want to do and stuff like that. Maybe specialty tools that you may want to bring. Like I said about the the words in my head. Tongs, yes, stuff like that. Something to flip your eggs with or something like that. Pots and pans if you want to bring that in a mess kit. Utensils, fork, spoon, chopsticks. Chopsticks are lightweight, but you're gonna be able to use them. Know how to use them. If you're planning to make a large soup or whatever, maybe you have a larger container to a pot, something like that. So you plan that ahead. Yeah, I was getting to that. Yeah, something like that. Yeah, I was getting to that too. Web wipes and stuff like that. TP, a bag, 5-gallon bucket with a pool noodle on the top, whatever, something like that. Tool like a shovel or whatever to make a cat hole and something like that. Yeah, you probably eventually need to do that. Depending, some people can go by without doing number 2 for a bit, but you never know, right? So plan ahead, so you have the tools or the gear available, and make the camping experience a little bit more enjoyable. Okay. Let's see what else. Communication type of tools, lighting type of tools, and stuff like that. Let's see what else. And this is even before you take off, kind of deal, right? You're planning this like the night before. Almost similar to like packing for a vacation or a trip by plane or a car trip. You plan beforehand, pack beforehand. All right. Sometimes I even pack a couple days beforehand. Sometimes weeks too, at times. And as the date comes closer, where I can see a weather forecast or weather update on the conditions, I'll be like, then I can fine tune it more. I'll be like, oh, it's not raining more. Maybe I'll bring more rain gear. Oh, it's not gonna be raining. I'll bring just a jacket and some pants if it's cooler out. Maybe a garbage bag or a thin poncho, just case on that outside chance instead of a full-fledged raincoat. Might weigh me down more or be bulky because I gotta bring it in and stuff like that, like in a bag or in a dry bag. Yeah, and then it goes. Oops, it's not what I wanted to do. Yeah, it goes back to that TP that Hooga said, CB said, and stuff like that. That drawing stuff like that. So let's see. We covered sanitation, tools, communication, shelter, clothing cover, hydration, water, containers, food. And something like you probably for most of us probably could even just get by with a lighter for a fire making tool or matches. If you want to bring in, you want to practice that ferrocerium rod, right? Pointed steel, something like that, you can bring that in. Not mandatory. I know some people bring that kind of stuff. Sometimes I'll just bring in a smaller ferrocerium rod, But the lighter's more, a must have, right? The ferrocerium rod's more to practice a skill or as a backup option. But the primary thing's gonna be a flame source like matches and stuff like that. And of course the tinder and fire starters to go with that too. I'm just gonna put that on the screen. Just because I want to. Just for you too. Alright, so it's the day of the camp out. Let's say I'm leaving right now. Okay, so vehicle, your mode of transportation, or if someone's picking you up or your carpooling or whatever, right? While you're going there, while you're in that RV, vehicle, car, truck, carpooling or whatever, top off, if you haven't already, for whatever reason, maybe top off your battery. Well, hopefully your battery bank's already topped off, but let's say your mobile, your smartphone, your cell phone, you top that off, right? Because you're still traveling on the road or whatever, right? So, that way you don't have to dip into your battery bank or idle your vehicle just to charge your phone. That extra, how much percentage, Especially if your battery's down to 60 or whatever, top that off while you're in the vehicle still. Use that power that you do have, right? And maybe if you're going, if you're going with people, maybe discuss things like stuff like that. Share some time with them, some memories and stuff like that. Plan it ahead, right? So it's openly discussed. That way there's no confusion or whatever because you've talked about it the day before or whatever. If this happens or whatever, this is our plan, right? Or you remind everyone, it's like, did you top up your phone? Everyone told someone that we're going, right? So a lot of people know where we're going. Friends, family, parents, whatever, your kids already know where you're going. So just case, right? Hopefully it would never come down to that. Probably won't, right? But just case, right? It's better to know that, someone come looking for you if need be, right? Hi. Oh, yeah. Something like that. If you're going with multiple vehicles, multiple people and stuff like that. More fun in utility, yeah. Let's see, what else? What am I missing? So on the day of the trip, yeah. You're going now, you're camping out and stuff like that. Remember, as you're going, when possible, try to improve your situation better, whenever possible. That could be as simple as, hey, I'm walking in. Hey, Sierra, wait, stop. I'm not saying stop on the middle of the highway, right? Let's say you're at a pit stop, fill up on gas, right? I guess, or fuel up, right? Make sure your vehicle is topped off. I guess that's for all you. I think that's there'll be a common sense. Everyone's gonna do that, but top that off, right? Regardless if it's hybrid or not, still top it off anyways, right? Because the transportation is gonna be important too, because like your vehicle and stuff like that, the wheels, and stuff like that. You've got an oil change, you've got a tune-up or something like that beforehand, maybe even a month before that. So, because your vehicle is gonna be important, RV or whatever, because you don't got that, you're walking back to town, you're walking back home, or whatever, or you're gonna inconvenience someone by calling them up. Hey, can you come pick me up, GP? What happened? I have a flat tire and I forgot to put the spare in. Yeah, that kind of thing. That's gonna be very, very much an inconvenience, and hopefully mitigate that, and so it doesn't. The chance of that happening is rare, because it's possible. It's possible, right? You might be making a spare room for gear. So you take out that spare tire. So if you do that, you're gonna remember that. And things like roadside assistance may take time to get to your location and stuff like that, or you're gonna wait till at least one day, 24 hours at least, if not more. And this, and I'll bring this one thing up too. Don't lock your keys in the vehicle when you're going camping. Yeah, because calling someone to open the door, it's very much of inconvenience, right? At least roll down the windows, or at least have the keys in your hands, right? Don't lock the door and the keys inside, because it's gonna be it's just a bad thing. People are gonna be PO'd and angry. No one can charge their phone or whatever. There's no radio playing for anyone. No one can drive anywhere with it, and and stuff like that. And you're not breaking the window because you already called someone and you don't want to pay for a broken glass. And stuff like that. Because remember, that can happen, especially with lots of people. People going in vehicles or whatever, car camping, or your vehicles are relatively close by. Yeah, your vehicle is going to be very important. It's just as important as that sleeping bag, the water, and the food, because it's your mode of transportation back home, or to get people back home. And without that, if you're with like 4 different people and the transportation breaks down, then it's more of a hassle. Someone's got to call someone, roadside assistance, tow truck, and if you're in a remote area, even more important. I can agree more with that, Tammy. Hi, Double D. Double D homestead in a house with me, or in my campsite, my virtual campsite. Let's see. Yeah, that might be an option. But it comes back to keep the keys on the outside of the vehicle. Alright? And stuff like that. Or maybe if you have someone else keep a spare key, right? Or at least something along the lines of that. So it wouldn't be such an inconvenience. Because like I said, your vehicle's going to be important. This is important as the water, shelter, and the food, and the tools, and the lighting. But anyways. So now you're on this trip, you're driving, you're with people, you're all talking, having a good time, or listening to the radio, making some small chat and stuff like that. Well, and like I said, you make a pit stop for that fuel, to refuel, and stuff like that. Keep in mind, because I know I do this, especially if I'm planning to have a campfire, I'll be like looking for resources all along the way. Especially if I'm hiking or walking in. It could be as simple as, here's this piece of cardboard, or here's some grasses, or some, maybe you're really lucky and find some fatwood, lighter knot or something like that, pine wood and stuff like that has the resin inside, or birch bark, right? That spare bag that you decide to bring, just in case, grocery bag, whatever, put that stuff in there, and now you've already done that already, so if you want. Because depending on your area that you're going, the resources of like Tinder may be a little bit more limited, but you're still an hour out, and it's like, oh, I just found a whole bunch. All right, so being proactive about that and thinking and preparing beforehand, just in case. And especially if you come to your campsite or whatever, and it's like, the Tinder's a little bit worse than I would like. Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. So let's see. Now, you're arriving in your campsite and stuff like that. Remember, if you've never been to this area, or make sure everyone knows where to go. I mean, in terms of how to get back. Just in case, like, this is the main highway road, or this is the main road. Now we're going off-road or on the side road more. So just in case, right? Now everyone knows, familiar with the terrain and stuff like that. Probably no one's gonna get lost because most of the time people are gonna stick together and stuff like that. But landmarks like, oh, hey, Sierra, this is the main river right here, right? It flows north to south or whatever. Or here's the main lake over here, name whatever. We're camping by the mountains, Sierra. So the mountains are always gonna be east of us, or west of us, or north of us. Okay, that way everyone's on the same page of everything. Because if everyone's on the same page of everything, when certain situations happen, right, we'll all be on the same page of it, right? Because it's like you're all going out there, or if you're going with more than one person or whatever, a group, family member or whatever, you're all in it together. You know what I mean? So you gotta work together too. Make sure everyone's on the same page. You don't need to hide information like, oh, by the way, this is south of us. By the way, there's the road south of us, or we're gonna be camping in and we're gonna be hiking in east. So you gotta go back to the main road. It's gonna be west, right? For example. And some of these tips I remember in terms of like day hiking and stuff like that. Because if you're going north, eventually you gotta come back south or something like that, right? Especially if you gotta park and hike in. Now everyone even knows where the vehicles are, right? You park in this campground or whatever, you're gonna hike east. Everyone knows, okay, the vehicles are all west of us, right? Where the sun sets, right? For example, right? Just in case some sort of emergency or something priority, or you gotta go get something, or you gotta bring in more firewood than you think or whatever from another campsite a couple miles away. So at least everyone knows that. Especially important if you go with more than one person, in my opinion. All right, so now we've established that we planned ahead. We've already traveled. Now we're at the campsite. Your campsite, wherever it is, right? I guess one of the first things I do is stretch. One of the first things I get out is like I stretch, because usually you're packing in quite a bit, right? So sometimes you got, even in a truck or whatever, you got lots of stuff and stuff like that. So usually you got cramps. It's like, okay, everyone, get out, start stretching, right? Maybe you have a sip of water and stuff like that, right? I guess the next thing is like set up camps, right? Now, if it's hot out or raining out, that's one thing. Those are issues you have to deal with, right? If it's raining out, maybe you set up a tarp first and set up everything underneath it, for example, to keep everything dry. Or set up that tarp beforehand to have some shade, right? And then you just modify the shade or the rain cover as you see fit, right? As you build your community or structures, right? And whatever, right? Table, if you bring something like that. Camping chairs, hammock, whatever. Any prep for it. What's up, man? So stuff like that. And I almost got derailed there by my own looking at the chat. So let me have some water here. I need some water. Hydrate up, right? I appreciate all your guys and gals' encouragement here. I see it. 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 So let's see. So you're there, and you're setting up, right? I always figured, you want to set up camp before it gets dark, I guess. Get established before it gets dark. Or let's say you show up in the morning, or whatever. Let's set up a camp before it gets too hot, or whatever, right? Stuff like that. Try to plan ahead, be sensible, and be proactive whenever possible. So you're moving things out of the truck or vehicle, car, SUV, whatever you're bringing to move the transportation in, right? So you unpack, like I said, if it's raining or really sunny or hot, you might want shade or rain cover. But let's just say it's just hot out or it's sunny out, right? So, all right, okay. Tarp, okay. Maybe something like a tent. Your hammock, you start setting it up. Bring out your stove or whatever, right? Maybe you bring in a fire pit or something like that, so you place that down. You're not ready to send up that out yet, right? Priorities should be shelter first, your cover, stuff like that. Sleeping mat, inflatable mattress, blankets, pillows, sleeping bags, stuff like that. Get those sorted out beforehand, right? Take breaks. You got a camping chair. I wonder sit down for a little bit, right? Take that 5 minutes, especially if it's hot out. Pace yourself, right? Enjoy the experience, right? Enjoy the experience. Because if you plan ahead in event, you should have plenty of time to set up camp. Especially if you're very experienced with setting up camp, you set up lots of tents before. You know how to set up you have knowledge of hitches and knots, so you're like, okay, I'm running this bridge line across over here, CR. Okay. Stuff like that. Then, in time you just hang a proof stick knot to put your lantern over, right? Yeah, right. Where you're designating, okay, this is where we're gonna sleep. We'll probably have the fire out here, a campfire out here, away from our shelters, right? Because obviously, sparks and stuff like that, sheer heat and stuff like that. Or, let's say you go with a group of, let's say, 5 or 6 people, so, away from the shelter, so, if people want to stay up a little bit longer, they can. If they want to fall asleep, take an afternoon nap, sleep whatever, they can. But it's not too close to the campfire, so, the noise and stuff like that. Let's see, what else? I'm just thinking in terms of not only my last camping experience, but other camping experiences, and even simple overnighters, right? Right. And of course, I'm talking about in fair conditions, I'm not talking about camping on top of a mountain or camping in the middle of jungle, but there's still little things to keep in mind. Like I said, like the water, the shelter, food, stuff like that. Now, if you want, bug nets may be useful too. I don't always bring them, but if I ask beforehand, or if the conditions are very prone to having a lot of bugs, like mosquitoes around, then I'll probably bring that along with me. Especially, or a shelter, or bringing a shelter in for that purposes, right? That has like the mesh and stuff like that. Just so everyone's a little bit more comfortable, right? And stuff like that. And generally enjoying the camping experience, right? Where it's everyone's like in a good mood and stuff like that. So while I'm showing that here, appreciate everyone coming in for this stream with CR here. Let's just whip something in on over here. That and yeah. Yeah, something like that. Prep for it, yeah, something like that. Earplugs can help, right? Earplugs can help. I know one of my friends brought in earplugs, and they're like, "Oh yeah, really easy, fall asleep and stuff like that." If you're not one of those heavy or sleep like a rock sleepers, right? Or a noise distracts you or wakes you up and stuff like that. Let's see, what else? Okay, so you're setting up a camp or whatever, right? You get established for the first day or night, right? Stuff like that. And trying to improve on your shelter situation when needed, right? Let's say you're gonna expect higher, even warmer temperatures, hotter temperatures. Let's say you went today, it was like, let's say 2170 Fahrenheit, but Saturday, the next day, for example, it's not getting into the 90s or whatever, right? Maybe plan to have more shade and stuff like that. Try to do that kind of stuff earlier in the morning while it's still relatively cool out and stuff like that. So, because you don't want to be exerting yourself midday just to make shade, just to keep cool, when doing it at like 9, 10 o'clock in the morning is probably a more sensible thing. And stuff like that. Let's see here, what else is there? In the same way, if you're expecting rain or whatever, rain, maybe double check your the lines that you have down, the guidelines, the anchor points and stuff like that. Make sure they're good. Maybe weight them down with some rocks, some logs and stuff like that you sourced out from the environment. Maybe it's that couple pieces of extra big pieces of like firewood or something like that hasn't been split yet. Some rocks or whatever that you found by the lake or whatever, right? So you're using those natural elements to help you out too. Because sometimes I have used, there's this method where if you don't have grommets in a tarp or something like that, you use like a pebble or something like a smooth pebble to use. So I've done that before sometimes. So I'll be like down by the shore or whatever. Well, depending where I am, and I'll find little smooth rocks. I'll be like, I'll bring them back and I'll use them. Using the environment itself to help me, make the situation or the shelter or problem solve easier. Whew, it's definitely hot. I'm actually breaking out in sweat right now. So hydrate up. I got my middle water bottle over here. This is actually the same one that I brought the last few camping trips that I did. So As I always say, everyone should have their own water bottle or water container or coffee mug. It just makes it easier. It just makes it easier. Everyone's got one. No one's got to share. No one's got. You don't have to rinse as often or wash out as often for someone else. So, and relatively, these are inexpensive, free, and very important to have, in my opinion, as a water container. What's up? It's Josh. What's up? How's it going, Gardner Josh? In the house with me. Appreciate it. Appreciate it. Thanks for dropping in. Hopefully everything's doing well with you. I appreciate everyone joining me on this Reconnect with the people as I talk about camping and camping stories, tips and tricks, and things that I've done, picked up, learned, found out the hard way at times too, right? At times, yeah. Yeah, because I do have stories. I do have stories. You just have to pretend that we have a metaphoric virtual campfire in front of us. I forgot to put it in. I was going to load up a video. Set up a video for that, but I forgot. So, but you might see that in their video or whatever. So, man, yeah. Just randomly leave that on the screen. Hold on a second. I gotta get some air. It's warm in here. Whew. Yeah. Keep a cool head, right? As they say. Let me shut this door. Oh, sorry. I just shut this door. I had to slam the door, so to speak, to save you guys the noise. So, all right, let's see here. So, your first night, first date, or whatever goes without a hitch. Everything's great and all that stuff, and you're enjoying your time. You know, maybe you're practicing some skills, talking in front of a campfire with people, making s'mores. Maybe, I don't know, maybe you're baking something, I don't know, maybe making bannock, I don't know, or something like that. S'mores, what's the hot dogs, I don't know. Stuff like that. Let's see, what else? Well, don't worry. I'm not in the stream in the way that it probably should be ended. When you have to pack. But I'll talk about that in a little bit here. I'm still talking about, like, during the trip itself, right? You know, however many days. Let's say you're in day 1 or whatever, day 2. Stuff like that. You know. And let's say you're okay, let's say it's the first night. You know, it's coming up to the first night. It's 9, 10 o'clock at night in the evening now. During the summertime, around this time of year, you know, where it's starting to get darker out, you know. Before the evening starts, like before it after that time the sun has set, that twilight period of time. One of the things I also say is like, okay, everyone, everyone's got their headlamp or flashlight or whatever on them, right? Because it's not get dark soon, right? We all know that. So I make sure everyone's got that ready to go. You know, I bring them out, you know, pretty much after supper time, right? After we eat, kind of deal, right? I'll start bringing it out. You know, headlamp lights and stuff like that, lanterns, stuff like that. This could be even before a campfire is established, because it's too hot or whatever, right? So that's something else I keep in mind. That way, no one's scrambling to find a flashlight or a headlamp in the dark. Do that beforehand, right? Be proactive about it, right? It's easier to find a flashlight or things before it gets dark and stuff like that. Maybe even setting up your bed or your sleeping area a little bit before bedtime and stuff like that. So you don't have to do it. You can still do it when it's still daylight out, so to speak. So that's something else I keep in mind. It just, so you don't have to scramble or whatever, right? And you could just be like, on the campsite, you know, you could just hop into bed right away or whatever. and everyone's got their headlamp or flashlight or some sort of lighting option, or it's relatively close by, stuff like that. You know, and for example, let's say people got their phones and stuff like that. You know, I like to have a communal area where everyone can put their phone down. No one else touches anyone else's phone, but if it rings and stuff like that. That's if you're not, a content creator and you're not recording the whole time for real, right? Because the last thing anyone wants is on a camping trip is to break their phone, misplace their phone, or lose their phone. Because it's just one of those things. It's just gonna be a big downer, morale dropping thing. Because most people want to camp out, enjoy the time, reconnect with the land, the air, the water around us, share time with people, memories with people, camp stories, such as this virtual camping fire chat that I'm doing. Hint, right? Stuff like that. Let's see here, what else? Well, okay, let's go with this campfire now, since I kind of did a little segue into that. What I would, in my opinion anyways, and how I do it. Now, also, it depends on your skill level and stuff like that. I just take the time. Where, I strike the ferrocerium rod, use one match, one lighter. One. We'll flick up the lighter, right? Take the time. So, for the most part, light it once, and it just goes, right? I take the time to increase the surface area, because the secret to fire, for the most part, is surface area. You reduce it or increase it. And for the most part, during camping, you're not increase it. So, splitting wood, letting it dry out beforehand. Let's say it's sunny, right? Let this wood dry out a little bit more. Or let's say it's cloudy out, or you're experiencing rain or rain showers or something like that in between. You cover your tinder, you cover your firewood with that tarp or space blanket, Mylar space blanket, garbage bag, trash bag, contractor bag, the 5-gallon drum liner, those kind of things to keep that dry. Because obviously wood works better when it's dry for combustion. Well, prep for it. Hopefully it'll if you can be comfortable or make the person comfortable, right, you might enjoy it a little bit more. Sometimes people just dislike something because they had a bad experience or something like that. So I'm not saying, you're going to bring everything, including the kitchen sink, and turn it from camping to glamping, but I mean, if it's a way to get into the outdoors and enjoy, things fun outside, maybe even de-stress, forget about your troubles for a little bit, kind of deal. So, anyways, coming back to this fire thing, even in the last few campfires that I've started, I take the time. I'll take the time to do it. Instead of wasting all my lighter fluid, wasting 5-6 matches unnecessarily, or overly striking or scraping the ferrocerium rod, I'll increase the surface area. Now, the last time I went, it was drier out, so moisture wasn't as big of a concern. So I just increased the surface area and stuff like that. Split some wood and stuff like that. Kind of build it up like you're a log cabin or an A-frame style of fire. Have my little center has a little bird's nest that has the finer, better tinder types of material. And like I said earlier, when I said about when you're coming in to try to source that out, well, because you could be putting that into the campfire right away, right? And leaving some for the next day or whatever, right? So you could start the next day, the next night, and stuffing like that. Let's see what else here. So let's say things are a little bit more challenging in terms of it's wetter out than usual, or some of the tinder that you do find is wet, or the wood that you can source or whatever is a little bit more wetter. For example, if it's sunny out, or let's say you got some intermediate, you're getting that balance of both sun and rain during this trip. When it is sunny out, expose that material to the sun. Let it dry out more, so it can support combustion a little bit easier. And if it starts to rain again, you cover it back up, kind of deal. So it's trying to dry it out. It's just like how some people will say, you stab at a campfire or something like that. They start drying out wood on the outside of the fire to allow it to dry out. Pretty much more or less the same thing, except for you're doing this even before you start the campfire. Also, Brandon would just put that on the screen. Just emphasize that from GP. No, just kidding. I pushed the wrong button. I pushed the wrong button. Yeah. So, this campfire, A-frame, log cabin, whatever style you want, right? You want to make sure there's some airflow in. So if you have one of those, what's called fire pits or whatever, make sure there's holes in it so allow airflow in. It will help. Especially if you just brought in something that can hold it, but there's no airflow. Then just add some airflow in beforehand. That comes back to preparing beforehand. You can do it in your campground or a campsite or whatever, but you need the tools, right? Where if you're right at home beforehand, you can just do it beforehand, stuff like that. It reminds me of a few things. I've seen people do it with axes and stuff like that. I don't particularly enjoy doing it like that, but it's what you have. See, what else is there? Oh yeah, there's that grill that people might bring in too, right? Try to clean that off beforehand and stuff like that. Because also you're cooking off of it, so ideally standing it up is probably better than laying it on the grass or on the ground. It's the same. Try to keep that relatively clean. Let's see, campfire. Okay, I think. So basically, you create your A-frame, lean-to, log cabin or whatever. You get the campfire started. You only took one spark, or minimal amount of sparks, or minimal amount of lighter, or stuff like that. If you gotta use more, you gotta use more. But surface area is one of those things. Keep in mind. As a wise teacher once said to Sierra a long time ago. When I say a long time ago, I meant a long time ago, like 09, 08, like 14, 13 years ago. The secret to fire, CR, is surface area. Because they would tell me, and start ripping, like, I know some people use cardboard or whatever, right? Even ripping the cardboard, right? Increasing the surface area so there's more of it to catch that flame or hot sparks or whatever, right? That way it just kind of gets and it'll burn hotter but probably better too. Because it won't be as smoky. Especially if you don't need that smoke lingering there, for bugs or whatever, right? Sometimes I'll make my fires a little bit more smoky if there's more bugs, but if there's no bugs, then I won't fill the air with that campfire smoke too much. Out of respect for everyone else. I'll just put that on the screen for a little bit, like Tammy said. So basically, you just light the fire once and it goes. And, let it go for like that 15 initial amount of time. Then you add an actual fuel element in. Right? They're probably bigger than, wrist size and stuff like that. You're beyond that tinder stage now. where you're adding in like kindling and fuel in. And sometimes I'll add the kindling in on the outside, but I won't add necessarily the fuel in. There might be, and this almost this reminds me. In terms of fire making, platform, like I've split sticks, then you build on top of that. Especially important if you are building on top of the ground, stuff like that. And if you're building making a campfire on top of the ground, make sure you clear the ground as much as you can, right? Of course, regular fire safety type of things, right? Make sure it's well contained, not too big, or not unnecessarily too big, and make sure it's mostly out, or won't do any damage if you fall asleep and stuff like that. And when you do leave your campground, make sure it's just totally out. Especially if it's still hot enough the next day. And let's say you're leaving the next day or whatever, where you still feel the ground, it's still hot. That's still hot enough. Especially if grass or things fly into it, it might, Because unfortunately, lightning strikes are one thing for forest fire, but people not putting out their campfires is a totally different thing. And it's preventable. And let's remember, if you brought in water, okay, you have access to lake or river. Yeah, you got access to this water supply to use anyway. It just takes that container that you hopefully brought, maybe that pail, bucket, or 5-gallon bucket or pot, fill it up with a little bit of water, put it over your campfire, make sure it's out, right? The last thing anyone wants is not be able to come back to a place because it's changed and stuff like that. And those forest fires are a real deal, so let's try to prevent that. Okay, so you got your campfire established, you're good on that. You split some wood beforehand, you got some fuel and some firewood already, so you're good. Maybe you're considering that triple it or quadruple or 5 times it. Okay, as much as you can. Okay, maybe you have some tinder or whatever that you didn't use initially, leave for the next time, right? Just in case you really do need it for the next time, right? Especially, let's say, hypothetically, it's Friday. Well, it's actually Friday right now, but sunny out, hot. Next day, it's gonna cool down a little bit, start to rain. Well, having that extra tinder, that fire starter that you didn't use may come in handy, covering your wood and stuff like that, right? Just so it's easier next time. Being proactive about it instead of, let's just let all this wood that we're wanting to use as a camper just get wet from the rain. Probably not a smart idea. Because now you gotta wait for that wood to dry out. It'll be harder to light, harder to get it going, stuff like that. Okay. All right, GP. So we gotta keep in mind too. Let's see here. In a lot of these things, you might even consider on day hiking, to a certain degree, survival situations, stuff like that. You might like the shelter, the water, the food, stuff like that. Although there's a lot more to that, though, because there's a big difference between, in my opinion, anyways. There's a big difference between. There's similarities, but there's differences between camping, a survival situation, bugging out, getting back home, and stuff like that. There's certain priorities, right? Shelter, water, food, feeling safe, stuff like that. But camping is more of a planned thing, right? But it's sort of planned. Survival situation, is probably not planned. All right, you did not plan. You didn't want twist an ankle or whatever, right? That's why when you go camping first, right, get used to it, right? Go with people. You don't go solo. Go with people first. People that know a lot of what they're doing. They can help you out. They could be like, hey, yeah, I can help you with your tent or whatever, right? They can show you the ropes, right? Show you your skills, and it's like, oh, where you learn, and so it's like, and you can apply these skills, because I think skills, knowledge, and experience are important in this too, because you gain those things when you go camping. Certain little things like cooking on an open fire, right? Boiling water, setting up a tarp tent shelter, making feather sticks, producing or establishing a campfire relatively quickly, with one spark, two matches, maybe one or two strikes of the lighter, right? Stuff like that. Because I have seen this before, where, and this is coming back to some of the camping stories I have, or fireside chat that I have here. I've seen people, even with a lighter, struggle in making a campfire or establishing a fire in the first place. When people they've been asked to do it, I've seen them. And let me just say, okay, there's no side chat right now. Feel free to chime in, by the way, on this. But I've seen people where, even with a lighter, struggle to establish that kind of, where your campfire is, as long as there's fuel, you're good kind of deal, right? Like, it's that chemical reaction of fire is taking over and stuff like that. It's just not smoldering or whatever. Because I think that's also important too, is because, let's just say it's summertime right now, but let's say you're going in the cooler parts of the season or whatever, right? You may want that campfire faster than you think, because people are getting cool or whatever. Let's just say it's hovering around 10 at night or whatever, right? 50 Fahrenheit. You might want that campfire for warmth, not just for cooking or the bugs, but actual warmth. But of course, if it's like 20, 30 above during the day, 15, 60 Fahrenheit at night or whatever, around right there, or above 50 Fahrenheit, you're probably, you're not having the campfire for warmth, more for cooking and maybe some lighting, and maybe drive off some mosquitoes and bugs and stuff like that. But coming back to the campfire thing, I've seen people with lighters and stuff like that, and I'm just like, one of the first things I say there along the way, that stick, unless you're just playing around or goofing around, you're not going to set that stick on fire. Or by the time you set that stick on fire, because it's like pencil size, maybe it's dry or whatever, you just consumed all your lighter fluid, right? Where breaking the stick, if you have tools like a pencil sharpener even, or a cutting tool like a knife, and stuff like that, you increase the surface area. You could say, I've seen people use I've seen people use cardboard, tissue, or whatever, increase the surface area, rip it apart. Now, and people will be like, oh, I'm not trying, Sierra. I'm not trying yet. I'm like, yeah, you're not trying, but you're also using up your lighter fluid a lot faster, right? Especially if you only came up with one lighter, you could easily use up the fuel real fast. Trying to get something bigger to start when you can mechanically increase the surface area by ripping it apart, spreading it apart, right? Increase the surface area of it and stuff like that. Especially if you got cutting tools like a knife, a pencil sharpener, you can increase the surface area of stuff like that. Shavings, feather sticks, splitting wood. It's not just an axe that could be used, but an axe allows you to have like bigger fuel materials, stuff like that, like log and stuff like that, and salts like that. Yeah, I almost forgot about that. Sorry, I forgot about that. I should have mentioned that in your camping out when you're first looking for a campsite. Yeah, look for widow makers. Those W's, right? The widow makers, where the water is, where the wood is. I forget what the last one is. Was it wind? I know it's widow makers, water, wood. Well, I forget. Is it wind? Maybe it is wind. That's the last W on that. I forgot about that. Thanks for mentioning that, Shadow. Should have mentioned that earlier. Right? Because you don't want anything falling on your shelter, especially if it's windy out. So take a look. Right? And actually, you should probably be looking all the time, anyways. Just in case things shift or whatever. So let's see. Oh yeah, coming back to this campfire, this fire scenario. I've seen this twice already, and just like, once it was relatively, not at a campsite, just an outdoor kind of thing, backyard kind of thing. But there was this other time. I think this was like 2017, 2018. Or whatever. People are all I hear is like, "Hey, CR." I'm like, "Yeah, what's up? What's up, guys? Can you help us, please? Can you help my friend here, CR?" I'm like, "Yeah, what's up?" He's trying to make a campfire, CR, and he seems to be struggling or whatever, right? I'm like, "Oh, okay, right." And yes, I could probably be like, because I've been proactive about it, and bring out a fire starter and be like, "Oh, here you go," right? Instead of just showing gear, I decided to share knowledge and show skills with a canoe, because I think I brought a Mora at that time with me, and just like just splitting sticks and stuff like that, and then mentioning about the surface area that I've been mentioning about, right? Increasing the surface area and stuff like that. You're doing that TP style, whatever, right? Of fire lay, TP, log cabin, lean-to. I don't usually use the star thing that much, because for some reason I don't have a need for it. It hasn't been how do I say, as useful as I think as a fire lay. I know there's reasons for it, but I generally will use like lean-to cabin, log cabin, or log cabin, or TP style. So I'm coming up to them and explaining about the surface area. While I'm explaining, I'm doing stuff right, and just brought in that Mora that I was talking about. I think it was Mora. Yeah, it was a Mora. And I think that on that trip I actually did bring, per se, quote unquote, fire kit. So I brought, because they had their kid with them or whatever. I brought the pencil stripper. I'm like, I gave the kid the pencil stripper right away. I'm like, here you go. And they're like, what's this for? This is to make shavings. Like just like your pencil stripper you use in school. You get those shavings. Same thing. And I'm explaining this so they can understand it, right? Because I could have just did it for them. Here's the fire starter. Here's all I'm doing. But I wanted to explain this to them so they know how to do this, and they don't have to rely on someone else to start it for them. If that makes any sense. Instead of giving them the fish, so to speak, I'm showing them how to fish. That metaphor. So, and about, let's say 10 minutes later or whatever, campfire's established. Next thing you know, you're adding in fuel, and then the fire itself becomes self-sustaining for a little bit, providing you add fuel. Stuff like that. Hi, Arik. Hey, this is campfire. This is like a campfire chat or camping things that I've been talking about. Art, by the way, just talking about the fire aspects, campfire itself aspects. Uh, Art, you don't need to drop any links for this. It's not necessary. You can if you want. I won't say you can't, but it's not necessary anyways, my friend. I know people appreciate that though. It's not necessary for this one. Let's see here. Campfire. Oh yeah, so I helped this person establish a campfire. Now, this other time when I was helping someone make a campfire in their backyard or whatever it is, it's summertime, they wanted to make s'mores or hot dogs or whatever, something later on. My friends, I just seen my friend trying to use one lighter this whole time, right? And even before I pulled out a lighter or a fire, something to a combustion device like a kerosene rod, lighter, matches, solar, flint, steel, whatever, that kind of stuff. Even before I started doing any of that, the first thing I did was I assessed what we had, materials to use. Right? There was a fast food bag nearby, right? Because my friend instantly went into like pulls out the lighter and grabs a stick and tries to light it. I'm like, yeah, I know it's been dry and warm out, but that stick might have too much, not enough surface area for the flame or the ignition source that you're trying to use. As, for example, that lighter. All right, and like I said, my friend's like, well, I'm not even trying yet, and I'm like, I'm not trying like you yet, Senor. I'm like, I was saying, and sort of a rant, but I'm like, yeah, but I'm also not wasting my lighter fluid like you are right now. All right, I'm taking that extra minute or two to increase the surface area, develop or make the tinder work better, right? Especially since I'm not using anything like an accelerant or anything like that, then use anything like hand sanitizer, for example, alcohol or something along the lines, candle or anything along the lines of that, or lighter fluid or anything like that. Just using dry stuff, right? Per se, dry material, and just like I increased the surface area. There's a fast food bag. They had this napkin inside still. What I do, I grab the napkin out. There's a little bit of cement or whatever, rough patch of cement. I just rubbed it against it, increased the fibers in it. Because I think I was thinking of lighting it with a ferrocene rod or sparks, but I just used the lighter anyways. But increase the surface area. So when it does combust, you'll liberate that heat faster, and hopefully, because you're liberating the heat faster in the tinder, that your kindling will take over, and then as the kindling burns, then you can put in the fuel and stuff like that. It's all good, Ark. It's all good, my friend. Take care. I could use some water myself, actually. It's hot. It's hot, actually. It's actually quite warm out right now for us. Thank God I brought out water now. Anyways, long story short, these two stories are things that have happened within the last 5, 6, 7 years for me. So, an example of that, and why some people, including myself, will take that extra time to set up a fire, an extra 5 minutes or whatever, increase the surface area, like I said, whatever you have to offer. Let's say it's man-made type of materials like a tissue, cardboard or something like that. Increase the surface area, especially if you think the fire is going to be harder to start because your kindling is not bone dry, your firewood or fuel isn't bone dry, or some of it's still green or whatever. right? You try to source out the best you can, but that's the best you can. So that means your tinder, your initial start of it's got to be really, really as hot as possible, and liberate that, that chemical energy in terms of fire very, very fast. That way your kindling that goes after will start to combust, and hopefully you get that chemical reaction of fire to take over. Then next thing you know, you have an established campfire that can stay hot or burning or combust and have a flame for longer periods of time instead of just smoldering out kind of deal. It's usually, and I've experienced times where I should have took the extra 5 minutes, I didn't, where it's just like it smolders out or it doesn't catch, right? It happens. It's happened to me a couple times, but I also remember sometimes I gotta remember increase the surface area and take the time for it too. Because nothing is worse than using your fire starter and it did not work. Because you decided not to split the sticks beforehand, or the fire logs beforehand, split some sticks beforehand, stuff like that, and add some airflow in terms of channels for the oxygen to rise from the bottom of your campfire, your fire pit, or something like that, so air can rush in. That combination of oxygen and fuel and heat, also flame source, kerosene rod, and stuff like that. So I did not realize I went for so long talking about camping, but there's lots to think about. Don't get overwhelmed, right? Enjoy the experience. A lot of times, some of my best memories are just not always say setting up a camp or whatever, but being able to enjoy a sunrise, a sunset, the fireside chats that I have with people around a campfire or whatever, and just sharing stories, right? Those memories right there, where it's just like they're memorable because we had laughs and stuff like that, share time with people, It's just like how I'm reconnecting with you people right now, right? It's almost like that too. So I'll probably go until the top of the hour. Yeah, the top of the hour, the 2 hour mark. I'll probably finish off here. Because I'll finish off with this. Well, I guess I could start getting into that in a little bit here about breaking down camp and packing it back up, right? Whatever you pack, try to pack it back out, right? Leave no trace, right? Maybe even trying to leave the environment, campground better than it was before, right? So other people can enjoy the same wonderful experience versus, the first time and they just see a bunch of garbage and where a campsite's been and wasn't taken care of or maintained well, and not ruin it for other people. Because it's a good experience, right? A sobering experience too, right? You get to unwind and unconnect for a little bit of time, Like a lot of these camp trips I go on at times. I mean, it's one thing if it's literally in the backyard kind of deal, but for the most part, I won't be on a device. I'll just be talking to people, relaxing, right? Unwinding from the situations of social media, Second Life, online life, and stuff like that. Forget about my current problems, my current issues, and things going around. Just kind of focus on the now kind of deal, where I am at that moment, the campsite, and unwind and just relax. Maybe daydream, like this daydreaming music I have playing out here on StreamYard. And what I'll do here, in this last 15 minutes here, I'll talk about 10 minutes worth of unpacking, unpacking back up and stuff like that, and things that I've kept in mind, because I think I've talked enough about fires, campfires, setting up shelters, like a tent and stuff like that. Planning beforehand, right? Now, for me anyways, let's say I was, like I said, hypothetically speaking, I went out on this Friday, which is Friday today, on this day of the stream. I'm coming back on, let's say, Sunday, Monday, or whatever, right? While it's cooler out, especially if I know it's gonna be hot out, sunny, warm out, or whatever, I might pack up my bag or whatever the night before, just without the sleeping and all that stuff. I might just pack up my clothes or get things ready for the next day, kind of deal. That way, I'm not exerting myself too much, stuff like that. And reversing how I set up. So something like a tarp might be the last thing I tear down in terms of camp, stuff like that. Let the fire pit cool off and stuff like that. Put water over it, right? Fire safety, right? Maybe I'll keep the tarp up, but okay, we're going today, kind of deal. It's Monday or Monday morning or whatever. Okay, pulled out my tent because we're packing up soon. All right, we're leaving that day, all right, on a Monday, and slowly gather stuff together and pack it back up. And slowly either hike it back out to your vehicle or put it in your vehicle or whatever, truck right away, and stuff like that. And pack up your garbage and all that other stuff. Garbage bags and stuff like that. Try, and I really mean try. No trace, right? You pack it in, pack it back up, and stuff like that. And drink some water too, right? Right. If you're packing out water, you might as well drink some of it, or something, and use some of it too, right? Regardless, maybe it's for that wash up, wash, clean, maybe wipe the sweat off of you, cool down with, right? The water's gonna be important for that kind of stuff. So, if you have an extra 5 gallons still, and you might be able to use four gallons of it up. All right. I know sometimes we do that every so often. Especially if we have like 2 larger jugs, like let's say 15-liter containers of water, we might use one up, right? For cleaning right away, keeping cool with, putting out the campfire and stuff like that. So that container's empty when you come back with it. Let's see, what else? What else here? I'll probably usually I leave one chair around just so I can sit for a little bit, because that's not too hard to pack that back up. Stuff like rolling your sleeping bag, rolling your tarps and stuff like that can help too. I know that helps. If you have more than one person with you, or you're not going solo, you're going with someone else, someone can help you fold up your tarp. Almost like, folding a large bed sheet. It's a little bit easier with someone. A little bit hard. It's a little bit tricky to fold up a tarp or whatever, especially a large tarp on your own. Especially if it's windy. But you'll have to weight down one side and go from there. You can do it alone, but it is easier with more than one person to help. So, stuff like that. Let's see, what else? Oh, here's another tip, and I always try to remember that. The pegs that you put in the ground, or whatever, especially if you're using common metal pegs that have that L shape or look like a 7, those little silver type of pegs, remember to pull them out. You're gonna need them for your next camping trip, right? So while you're tearing down camp, especially with your people, be like, hey, if you see a peg, let me know, we'll pull it out, right? So we can use it for the next time we come out camping and stuff like that. And again, that comes back to leaving no trace. And besides, a resource like that, you probably don't want to just leave behind unnecessarily. Stuff like that. And pack that away and stuff like that. And I can't believe I almost forgot about this. See, there's little things I always forget about this camping that I should have mentioned. Your cooler. If you bring in food or whatever, right? Your cooler or whatever, keep that in the shade, right? I think that goes without saying. Keep that in the shade, covered, out from the sun, away from the sun. But coming back to this tearing down camp, generally I'll go from the inside of the tent outwards. So, pack up my bag, pack up my sleeping bag, blanket. The clothes that I did bring or did use, I'll put them in a separate bag, like a grocery bag, or a garbage bag or whatever. Then put that in my dry bag, then pack that all out. So when I return home or whatever, then I wash them or whatever, right? I won't do laundry. That way, the clean clothes are separate from the dry, from the clean. The clean clothes are separate from the dirty clothes. In the same way that you would do that when you go on vacation. In terms of flying with a suitcase, keep your clothes separate so you know that these are clean clothes and these are not. These clean clothes, you don't have to do laundry, but these dirty clothes, as soon as you come back, you empty them out into your bin or whatever, and they're on the next to-do list in terms of washing, for example. That way, you don't mix it up and stuff like that. And if you do have time, maybe air out your tent a little beforehand. Maybe you've had campfires and stuff like that, so it might have residual campfire smells into it. So you may need to either air that out, come back, let it sit in the rain for a little bit, then let it dry out, then pack it back up. So that way, when you unpack it the next time, it has that nice fresh smell, and it still smells like my last campfire trip, right? You mean even in my last camp out, I let my tent dry air out. We were expecting rain in the day afterwards coming back, so I just reset up the tent real fast without the rain fly and just let the rain rinse the tent out to freshen it back up and stuff like that. Things I keep in mind. Let's see, what else? There's a few other little things, but that's pretty much it. Unless something else comes to mind. I guess I got about 7 minutes here on the stream. And 7, 8, 9 minutes, give or take. It's about 10 to almost. 10 to the top of the hour, wherever you are in the world. So I appreciate everyone that came by on this stream. I appreciate you guys all coming by. I saw you guys. Tammy, Puppy, Huga, Prep for it, GP, Shadow, Argwalman, Josh, yeah, all you guys and gals. I appreciate not only hearing me help, but sharing your own ideas and tips too. Because I know some people read the side chat, and hopefully I have the side chat enabled and stuff like that. But it's nice to hear some feedback, stuff like that. So I appreciate all the encouragement. Appreciate that. Let's see here. I'll put the music in like a few minutes here. Let's see, what else? Yeah, and basically, check the condition of your gear before you pack it away. That way it's ready for the next time you go back out or need to use the gear. Stuff like that. I'm talking about everything in terms of utensils are cleaned with the water, your tent, you've aired it out, it's dry, or if it's had that campfire smell, you've kind of soaked it out, so to speak, right? It's and of course, you know, you don't want to pack up. If you had to pack up a wet tent or whatever, let that dry out after. I can understand, you know, it's raining on your last day as you're going out, right? But that's where the tarps help. So you can, because you'll be underneath a tarp. Your tent will be underneath a tarp, so you could tear down your tent, but your tent will be relatively dry when you pack it. But if it's not, you know, when you get back home, try to let it air back out again. You know, that way nothing grows on it. There's no musky smell to it. It smells like nature, not campfire or something else. All right, everyone. I think that will be all from me here. So feel free to click right up here and change that red to gray and highlight that CR in that word. Like that. I appreciate that. Stay tuned for the next video and live stream or whatever for me. Maybe I'll be in your panel or something like that. I always enjoy being in panel chats and stuff like that. Some campfire chat and stuff like that. So the last 2 minutes here, 2-minute warning again on my stream. I'll be ending this right away here. I feel like I can just keep talking with this daydreaming music now. Right. I was thinking maybe next time around I go camping, maybe I should bring the harmonica. Maybe practice, right? Something like that. Or maybe have some more better camp stories. Stuff like that. I enjoyed spending this time with all you out there. And it was almost like we had a virtual camping experience. Almost. Not quite, obviously, but I got to eat. Anyways, because it's quite warm out here right now. So thank you all for joining me on this one. And like always, let's see. Put the fire-based one. You all can create a better future starting today. Go out camping when you can. As often as you can. Enjoy the experience of it, alright? Enjoy the experience of it. Learn from it. Brush up on some skills and that knowledge that you do have. Right? And practice on it. Whether it be making fender sticks and stuff like that. Being able to set up your tent. And maybe being able to set up your tent alone too, right? Know the procedures behind it. Being able to cook said item over a campfire or something like that. These things could help in your general preparedness too. And allow you to reconnect with nature out there, the land, the air, the water around us. And realize how important it is that we have that kind of stuff. Because it gives us so much more. And I do have a comment in here. Thanks, Shadow. Thanks. I was trying to avoid saying that. Thanks. I was trying to avoid saying that, by the way. I knew I should have, but anyways, use those skills, apply those skills, right? Apply those skills, right? Learn the knowledge out there and gain experience through your camping trips as you reconnect with people that you shared the time with, and like I said, the land, air, and water all around us. And like always, everyone, this world can be changing for us, but we all that too. Our skill and knowledge can get better with practice. You can't help everyone out there, but one can help someone out there. And until the next video and live stream from me, this was indeed... Oh, wait, you can't see me winking. An awesome experience with all of you. Take care, everyone. Go out, enjoy the woods, the camping, and all that stuff, and it's peaceful from the one known as CR, like it says on the screen. And I'll catch you all next time. Bye, everyone. Take care.